listening to Hungry for More, an Epicurean's Dilemma, and I'm your host, Trish Close. Recipe developer and food blogger Kayla Howey on the podcast today. She's the incredibly talented chef behind the food blog, The Original Dish. Now, there's a lot I could say about this conversation and interview. I loved it so much, but I want to make the intro pretty quick. I want to get right to Kayla. When I asked if food was important to her family growing up, it was this overwhelming yes, 100%. And I'm going to let her tell that story. It's not only incredible, it's so sweet and fun, and it hit me in all the feels. After college, culinary school was calling her name, so off to Napa she went. And she calls that experience somewhat dreamy, from the instructors to the people, the environment she was in, the community she was surrounded by, even some of the restaurant work she did after culinary school. She just says it was wonderful. When that was done, she came home and it was this idea of what now? What's next? And yep, you guessed it. That's where the food blog made its entrance. Slowly but surely, she saw her followers increase. She saw interest grow. And what I love about Kayla is every answer was full of thoughtfulness, intent. And now, looking at her food, that makes a lot of sense because every recipe is full of intent and full of a lot of thought. And I love that. Here's Kayla Howey. First thing I want to tell you, Kayla Howey, is it's about damn time.
It really is.
I have to throw you just a little bit of shade. I got an email from you in January of this year, 2024, and you were like, I am so sorry. I'm cleaning out my inbox. If the offer still stands, I'd love to be on your podcast. And I was like, woohoo, because you've been on my list for such a long time. I didn't realize how long until I went back and looked at that original email I sent you, which was in October of 2022.
So embarrassing. And this is so funny because I'm sure there were a lot of people who, if they were listening to this, they would be like, oh, she sent me an email 2 years later as well.
So here's the thing, though. I believe in it was not our time in 2022 or 2023. Our time is right now, sister, right now.
It's meant to be, and here we are.
Okay. Kayla Howey, you're a recipe developer. You're a food blogger. You're the beauty and the brains behind The Original Dish. I follow you on Instagram where you have 379,000 followers. Your food, the things that you post, it's just, I think one of the reasons you're my favorite is because it's all the things that are great. It's like you've got some meat dishes, then you've got some comfort dishes, then you've got some healthy things. Like, I just love the food that you create. It's absolutely drool-worthy.
Thank you so much. I mean, I just really appreciate it. And I love people who love food. So I just like the fact that you can connect to it and see all of that in it is just amazing.
Me too. I love people who love food. And I love to, Julia Child said that actually, the people who love to eat are the best people. But I also love talking food with food nerds. Like, we can geek out over how do you do this? What's your technique? What's your favorite fill in the blank?
Totally. I mean, it's honestly kind of a different language that like people who are in it and love it and kind of have made their world and career about it, just get it. And it's so fun to talk about food with people. So I'm so excited to chat with you and just,
Yay. Well, we're going to talk lots about food, but I want to start from the beginning. You're actually joining us via Zoom today from Chicago. That's where you're from, right?
Yes, from Chicago. I was born and raised in the southern suburbs. Lived here pretty much all my life, except for a little stint out in California. So Chicago is where I'm at.
I have this idea that the suburbs of Chicago are very John Hughes-like. It's just a John Hughes movie all the time. Is that accurate?
It's not accurate.
Okay. Damn it.
Sorry to burst the bubble.
What was it?
You know, it's actually hilarious because I've been in the city now living here for about 6 years, and growing up in the suburbs of it, you really don't come to the city all that much. You come here for, you know, a random Sunday night with your family, going to a movie or a dinner. But like, it really wasn't until my 20s that I was like really experiencing Chicago. So it was a very, you know, pretty standard childhood out in the suburbs.
Love it. Well, let's talk a little bit about that. Your childhood. What was food important growing up?
It was it. So big family history when it comes to food for me. My dad, when he was in pre-med at Loyola here in Chicago, he got into a connection with this pizza owner, and he started this huge Chicago pizza company in Chicago. So him doing that my whole life, and like for my brothers, us growing up with that, I mean, it was just kind of, it was a huge part of our life.
Sure. And
Chicago,
pizza is very important in Chicago, as I understand it.
it's very important. There's definitely some, people like to battle it out with the Chicago pizza here, but our company's Nancy's Pizza, and um, the main thing we do is we invented the stuffed pizza. So that's kind of the company's, claim to fame there. So he worked with the original owner, wanted to kind of take this small mom and pop pizza shop and franchise it and create it, into something bigger. So he's done that his whole life, and now it's a whole family affair where we're all on board. And I worked full time with the company for a couple of years, and now I'm more of a here and there. I help them with projects and stuff, but it's just so fun to do it all together.
Oh, I'm sure. Was it, did the family help out back in the day when this was just getting started, or is it more helping out now?
So when it was getting started, my mom and dad actually met at one of the original Nancy's. So she was like a
Stop.
waitress. This was I mean, it's a really long story. So like he was going to pre-med. He loved going to this pizza place, and it was owned by Rocco and Nancy, who could barely speak English. They just loved, they created the stuffed pizza. They were doing their thing. He came in, started working with them, opened up another location, was the manager. Yeah, my mom was a waitress there. They met, he was her boss, and that's where they met. And then she kind of kept working there. Her parents got involved. My grandma would make pizzelles, the Italian sort of wafer kind of cookie. And it was a whole thing.
Oh my goodness. Is your family Italian?
Yes,
Okay.
we are mainly Italian. That's kind of like if I were to say what we grew up, like tradition in food, definitely Italian. We're also Polish. So we have a lot of like Polish traditions with food as well. And yeah.
I was hoping you were going to say Polish. I'm part Polish, so I was really hoping for that because I know that's a big community in Chicago, right?
It is.
Mm-hmm.
Big Polish community. Like I said, I'm only about 25%
Okay.
Polish. So I would say like from my memories and anything revolving like just how it felt like with traditions and everything, Italian like is just what I remember.
Yeah. My Polish side is, I don't want to say watered down, that makes it sound bad, but I had an oma and we ate goulash. And so like there was definitely some influence there, but not super heavy. I have to ask, did your dad finish, like, was he pre-med? Did he just drop all of that together and just focus on the restaurant?
He dropped it. It was a
Wow.
really chance encounter that Rocco, had some legal papers that he was like needing read, and my dad happened to be there and helped him out with this one task, and they like formed this friendship, and he just became so invested. And I mean, truly, I don't know if you've had Chicago stuffed pizza, I know I'm biased, but it is truly such a magnificent product that he like tasted back then, and he just like found this passion to make that kind of his whole life. So he dropped pre-med and just started to build that business.
It sounds a little like he kind of saved Rocco and Nancy a little bit.
A little bit, it was such a different time, obviously, for food and restaurants, but they were just these passionate,
Mm-hmm.
Italian folks who just loved to make their pizza. And he just saw this whole bigger world of what it could be. And, it went on. The controversy is really that Giordano's is a huge pizza brand and company in Chicago. And everyone's claiming they did it first, all this stuff, and they claim to have invented stuffed pizza as well. But the funny thing is the two Giordano brothers were actually workers at one of the original Nancy's. And that's there's a big article on this. I don't remember when, but it's just funny because it all like stems from passion. I think people are just so passionate about their pizza here, and it's funny how it all plays out. But you are kind of right. He like took their vision and their love for it and just really made it into such a cool thing.
Such an American dream, right?
I know.
I love it.
And yeah, so that was kind of like my first taste into the food world, just, having him with the restaurant background. And um, it was sort of one of my first, I would say I worked in restaurants for a bit, but then I came back to Chicago and worked for the company. And all three of my brothers now work with the company as well. And it's truly like the most fun thing that we're all passionate about food to start, and then like want to help, build that business as well.
That is such a great story. And what a legacy. I mean, an absolute legacy.
It's so fun. It's fun to be part of that Chicago like culture of it all. And yeah. So that was the start of it. So definitely like my dad just especially loving to cook. He cooked every Sunday with the family. We made, big dinners, and we love food in general. All of our holidays revolve around making tons of food together. And,
naturally. Yeah. I'm hoping there's Sunday gravy. I'm hoping you guys do Sunday gravy.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
My both sides of the family have Italian roots, and our favorite sauce though is my grandma. We called it her sauce, but it was actually my grandpa's mother's recipe. And growing up, we would call it Bu Nunu's, which is really interesting because Busha, she's Polish. We like assumed it was her sauce, but it really wasn't. It was just a funny thing to realize one day, like, oh, she's actually making my grandpa's sauce because he's Italian. That makes sense. And
For
she's
sure.
Polish. She loves food too. It's just so fun.
It is. It is. I come from a food family too. It's important. And I think the biggest part of it is that it truly brings the family together. And, I've chatted with, friends and other acquaintances where that was never a big thing in their family. And always so heartbreaking to me. It's like, I can't imagine growing up without having everybody gathering around the table for Sunday dinner. I just can't imagine it.
Can't imagine it. And right, it's almost like for us, it is the activity of the gathering. I think a lot of other times it could be like everyone's bringing something, which is so nice as well, or you're ordering. But for us, like Thanksgiving Day, we're not doing anything but cooking all day, and that's how we spend our time together. And it's special. Yeah.
Well, while we're on the topic of Kayla the kid, I read that you were a figure skater.
Ooh, I was, and I'm now wondering where I put that out in the world.
It's on your website.
Is that on my wall?
Yeah. Also, I'm a journalist. Thank you.
I should have expected you were going to dig a little bit.
So yeah, tell me about figure skating. How'd that start?
Yeah, figure skating was another thing that was kind of like just part of our family. My uncle was a hockey player and then went on to be a college hockey coach. My dad played hockey, and basically all of us, my three brothers and I, we were just kind of put on the ice at a very early age.
Sure.
At like 2 or 3 years old, just kind of put there to see if we liked it. And all four of us loved it. They went on to play hockey. I started skating. And it was I skated competitively for about 15 years. It was sort of my first, it's funny, I feel like I've had these two like really big passions in life that I've pursued. And the first was skating and then food. And it was interesting because it really did change my childhood a little bit from like a typical kid. I would leave school early to go and train. It was very competitive, very at an elite level. But I wouldn't, like, it was just such a cool experience as well.
How long did you do it?
So from 3 years old, I pretty much then started like by 6 years old, I was competing. And I competed through a junior year of high school. So I was about, I want to say around 16. And I really went far with it. I made it to like the national level. It was an Olympic year. The last year I was competing at nationals, which is really just super cool. And but it's, skating's kind of, it's a younger sport. You kind of at that age, it's easy to fizzle out where, I was in high school. I didn't want to leave early anymore. I was, dealing with injuries and all this stuff. So it felt like the right time to kind of just, put it in the past and be done with it. But I still I just went skating the other week because it's just such a fun skill to like keep up.
Yeah, I'm super jealous of ice skaters. I've never learned how, and it just looks so freeing. Yeah.
The gliding, it's like a very freeing experience to be out there. And you're right. If you didn't, I kind of feel like it's with any sport, but if you didn't start as a kid, it's very hard to pick up.
Sure.
But if you skate as a kid, like I won't be able to do the really cool stuff I used to do, but I will always be able to skate and like make it look like I know how to skate, which is just so interesting.
I've seen the videos in different countries where you have these, creeks or rivers or even ginormous lakes that freeze over and people are skating on them. And I'm thinking to myself, you're literally on frozen water with like razor blades on your feet. Like it's insane.
I have seen those blow up as well. And that's terrifying because it looks like ice can crack at any moment.
Yeah.
But like so inspiring, so cool to like go find a place and skate in the wide open. Like that is so cool.
So I also read you went to University of Illinois with figure skating somewhat, you'd made that decision in high school to kind of leave that where it was. What were you thinking you wanted to do with life?
So when I stopped skating, it was such a huge part of my life that I really did have a couple years where I was like just very lost on what was going to be next. I was really missing having something, that I love doing and that like I could work at it every day. And I took a couple years to just kind of like I said, I can't explain it other than feeling a little lost with things. But the fun thing is that I remember at one skating competition, like in my last year of competing, we had a lull in the day where I was like needing to just take a break. And it was the first time I flipped on the Food Network channel and I was watching Food Network, and just this random little like break I had in the day of this, skating competition. And from there, I was kind of then randomly hooked on the Food Network. And that I would pinpoint as like kind of the beginning of just, my family, my dad was always into cooking, but that was like the moment I really became into like, ooh, I want to learn that. I want to like try that myself. So after a couple years, like I think in high school, I started just cooking myself. I would make Food Network recipes. I would watch the Food Network so much. I genuinely think I learned so much from watching like on repeat day after day from, 3 till 7 p.m., those back-to-back shows because they were so instructional. I just remember I just started cooking and it got into my brain, especially after seeing my dad, make a career out of it. Like, ooh, maybe I could do something with this. And I really wanted to go to culinary school right after high school, but I decided like, all right, let's go to college, 4-year degree, get that experience and just kind of maybe give myself a little bit more options of, a career path. But I stuck with like the theme. So I studied hospitality management and business, kind of thinking like, something in restaurants or the entertainment industry, not really knowing like what was going to come of it. I just like was really stuck on that field of, there was nothing else I wanted to do. So during college then at the University of Illinois, I was studying that. And then in my summers, I would go work in restaurants back back home. So I kind of got my first taste of like restaurant life, what it felt like to be in the kitchen. Um, and with each step, I just knew I really loved this more. And that led me to then go to culinary school after college.
So, and not only did you go to culinary school, but you went to culinary school in Napa. I mean, swoon, hashtag swoon right now.
I can't even like lie. It was too good. It was such a dream. Um, Such a dream. I was toying between, so the Culinary Institute has like a New York location in Hyde Park, and then it has the Napa location. And Napa had a really cool accelerated program. If you already had gone to college, you could go there and just kind of, it was like an 8-month sort of condensed culinary school. Um, and I will say, like, I think this experience out there was what just solidified how much I loved it, because it wasn't only the cooking, like it was my first taste of like really being in this food world that just existed so clearly out there. Like with the school, the restaurants, all the connections with like the chefs and just the land of like California and Napa and all of it. It just was like I was so immersed in all of it out there, and it was incredible.
Do you feel like if you would have done this right after high school, you know, I'm a big timing person. So do you think that you went to culinary school at just the right time, that you were meant to go to culinary school? If that makes sense.
Totally.
Okay.
I completely think so. My first year of college, I actually went to Michigan State because they had a really good hospitality program. But at the time, I was homesick. I didn't want to be in Michigan. I was kind of like, I just want to go back to Illinois where I know all my people. And I wasn't in the mindset really of like truly doing what was like going to be the best and like awesome for a career. I was just kind of, I don't think personally I was there yet. Um, so by the time like I finished college, had that experience, felt like I got, all of that and really felt set up for like kind of like going and doing something of that nature. It totally was the right timing.
How do you think culinary school changed you? Because obviously you went in one version of Kayla, you came out a different version because all of these things happened after culinary school. So how do you think that changed you? What do you think really happened while you were there that made things click?
That's a good question. I could really talk like in so many different ways, but a few things. Like one, from going to a really big college, you're meeting so many people all over the board, and your connections with people are kind of just it's all around just like we're all friends at this college type feel. So initially, like what my mind comes to is in Napa and at the school, it was a class of 50 people who were just also passionate about food and the same thing. And so having like that initial, I mean, one of my best friends I met the first day out there, we drove, up the Napa Valley, like drive together and got to the school. And like the way we connected over what we were about to go do and start, and like the way I was able to talk to people there about like, my dreams for my career and just my love for food, it made such a huge impact on me, really. And like just everyone out there, sharing in that same passion helped give me such a deeper oh, people are like loving this too. And like I can now have a clearer vision of like what I can do with it.
100%. You're surrounded by people who obviously want to be there, who have the same drive and passion as you do. It's like journalism school for me. You're around all of these people who we all have kind of the same goal in mind, right? It's like that's where we want to go. And then on top of that, you're in this community that is centered around food and wine, two of my absolutely favorite things. So it's just like when you're around, as we started the conversation, when you're around people that share those passions, you can't help but get your fire burning.
exactly. And I've got a comment on that about like where I'm at now in life that I'll come back to because right, you're just immersed and like you're for one, it was such a cool place. I mean, right, Napa, you've got so much available in terms of like food and the land and everything out there, farm to table cooking and everything was so
Mm-hmm.
like was all there, but then the people helped me kind of like connect to that and realized what I was actually in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then the chefs at the school and like just they have this world of knowledge that was so cool to learn from and experience like food through their eyes and through what they were teaching us and going to restaurants, going to wineries, working at like I remember I worked at this event on the San Francisco Bay that I was just like it was just kind of opening my eyes to this whole world of what's out there
Mm-hmm.
coming from knowing just what I knew at in college. So yeah,
It's dreamy.
I,
Yeah.
I yeah, it's so dreamy. I loved it so much that a couple of us, my close friends and I, we stayed after the program ended because truly 8 months just wasn't. It went too fast.
Mm-hmm.
We needed more time, like in this environment. So we got a little house together, and we all started working in restaurants. And I worked out there for about 6 months before moving back home. Then.
Do you feel like working out there after culinary school solidified some things for you? Were you like, yep, I did, yep, I checked that box. I did the right thing.
This was another, interesting time because when I graduated culinary school, that felt like such an accomplishment and like such a cool experience in the books there. But then it was also kind of like this another blank start, a
Mm.
fresh start of like, what do I do with this? You know?
Now what? Now what? Yeah.
Like, okay, I knew I wanted to get this really like immersive experience learning, fundamental cooking, but now what do I do with it? So having had already worked in some restaurants prior back here, just like little kind of intern stints, it definitely felt like the next logical step would just be to get a job in a restaurant. Um, the school at the time when we graduated was offering a really cool experience where for 8 weeks, we were able to, they were going to house us and we worked in their restaurant that the school had. It was called like the Wine Spectator restaurant. And that was almost like, okay, I'm going to say yes to that, get another little taste of restaurant life. And then really, I think actually at that time when I did that, I didn't know if I was going to stay in Napa. I was like, let me just give myself a little extra time out here. So I did that. And then a friend of mine had gotten a job at Bouchon Bistro out there. Um, and I was like, okay, that's really cool. I want to do it too.
Love it.
Yeah. So I just kept like kind of slowly listening to the like what was, sounding like the next best thing to do with all of it. And I was loving restaurants at the moment. And so I took a restaurant job at Bouchon. Um, and then that being my true first like full restaurant experience, it wasn't just in summer internship. That clarified a couple things. One, that I do love the restaurant industry, but two, the lifestyle of working in a restaurant was not something I wanted to do for the rest of my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was a big moment. It was a really hard, challenging job. The closest thing I feel like people could relate to of like how they portray restaurants on TV, the intensity of it all. It was a very, intense experience. I'm also somewhat of like a perfectionist. So at the time, I just felt such pressure to do an amazing job there. And it just took a toll on me physically. I mean, I was working the morning shift. I think I would get up at 3 a.m., get there at about 4:30. The first day I got in trouble because the schedule said 5:30, but apparently I was supposed to know that that meant 4:30 in the restaurant world. You're supposed to come an hour earlier and just work off the clock for a little bit. Stayed until like between 4 and 6 p.m. I would leave. I would come home and just do it all over again. My friend at the time I was living with was working the night shift, and I would basically wake up when she was getting home. It was really wild.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I bet. That sounds crazy. I would be screwed because I'm late all the time. And so that whole hour early thing, yeah, I'd be fired like after 2 days, probably easily.
Totally. It was a like wake up call that first day, but part of me did love it. Like I loved the challenge. I loved the adrenaline of it all. It was a really like interesting time because like half of me loved it so much and half of me was like, I, as a job, I just can't quite do this.
Sure. This may be cheesy. I feel like sometimes, especially lately, we all write chapters of our books, right? Like of the book of our life. We're writing these chapters, and your chapter was on, culinary school, and then you did some restaurant work out there. Do you feel like at some point you were like, and chapter's done, period, close that book?
I love that concept. I think it wasn't as clean and black and white in the moment.
Sure.
I think now I really look back and be like, yes, a great closure to that chapter, that time, that experience. In the middle, it was much more indecisive of like, part of me was like, oh, I went to culinary school out here. This is what I wanted to do and why this is what I'm going for. Like I should love working in a restaurant. I should continue this. Like I was really torn with what to do kind of like in the midst of that experience. I will also say it was a very unique cooking, like restaurant experience. I think there's so many more restaurants that are more chill and kind of not quite what I did there.
Probably, yes. You're probably accurate. So I guess then what happened where you were like, I'm going home. I'm done. I did it.
Yeah, I think I had in my mind that I wanted to do at least reach 6 months at that restaurant. So I completed that, little check mark in my mind. And it really it wasn't as like, I didn't leave as great of a feeling as I wanted. I left feeling just really burnt out at that experience. So I was feeling burnt out with it. I was thinking, okay, what is the fix here? I never like to sit in a situation too long that doesn't, feel good. You want your life to feel good. And even at the time I was like, I know I love this. This is what I want to succeed in this restaurant, but it just isn't working for me.
Yeah.
So it just seemed like a natural point to come back home. Doing another restaurant out there didn't really excite me. I didn't know what other career I could start out there. But a side note, I had actually already started my website at the time. So back in college is when I actually started the Original Dish website. Totally different time with it then, but it was like there and created. And I had always treated it like a side hobby project. When I was out in Napa, I really didn't, do much of anything with it.
Because you didn't have time.
Yeah.
You ain't got no time.
I think I came home from that restaurant job and just like sat for a good 4 hours and went to bed.
I'm sure. Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine.
Yeah. And then days off, I wanted to experience the area and all of it. So when I started thinking about stopping working at that restaurant, I knew I had this website created, and it was like it had gained this subtle, small enough traction that gave me the thought of like, ooh, I could maybe keep going with this. And so, yeah, it was just a natural point. I went back home with the idea I'm going to take a pause from restaurants. I'm going to work with my family company to kind of get my feet on the ground in Chicago while also starting to ramp up the website.
Was food blogging always the idea? Did that develop while you were back home during this time?
I'm trying to kind of remember how food blogging fit into like I definitely started the website knowing it wasn't just like, oh, I'm just going to do this to
Mm-hmm.
do this. I knew I wanted to do something with it. I had seen at the time, like, I think it was justataste.com or something. And Kelly from Just a Taste, she wrote like food blogging for dummies. And I just started to like see different sites out there. It was truly sort of maybe just 5 years or so after food blogging was starting to become more of a career in an industry. And I remember just kind of thinking like, ooh, I could do something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it also scratched my itch of like having something of my own to work on, kind of like I was saying with skating and having this just something to like, I really loved the idea of entrepreneurship in general and just like working on something for myself. So that played into kind of why I started it. Um, but even once quit the restaurant job, I didn't quite know what I could do with it. I just sort of thought like, and I don't think anyone at the time really realized how big food blogging was going to be. Um, so it was at that point for like a good 3 years or so, I was just kind of like very much balancing like working, with my family on Nancy's. I did a lot of their recipe development, a lot of stuff there. And then just kind of like toying with like, ooh, what can I do here? Like, how much can I learn in the food blogging world? And.
Right. But at some point, I mean, the light bulb went off for you because, I mean, you kind of went in head first a little bit.
I did. I want to say about 2020 is when it was the first year I did. I, told the family that they knew for years that I was working on the
Sure.
blog to be my full-time job one day. And it was just getting a little too much to balance both. I was starting to make, enough income with my own, I'll call it a business just in general because I was making, income from the
Mm-hmm.
website, from partnering with companies to kind of, and everything I was doing for it under that name of the original dish. I just kind of started to see, enough traction where I could be like, okay, let's just go with this.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, it's so funny you said 2020, the shit show that was the pandemic. I feel like that's truly changed so many ideas out there. And these things that we were doing just were not good enough anymore. And it really was the year of like, what is my passion? I'm just going to go for it. And the fact that we couldn't be around people actually helped a lot of us like kind of create these jobs. I mean, because you hear the story over and over again.
You really do. And right, especially with stuff online, because it was just such a
Yeah.
natural thing to do when you're sitting at home alone is to work on something for yourself digitally. So it kind of made sense um, to do it then. And then it also lined up with my, feeling like I had enough years under my belt doing it as a hobby where I was just like, all right, I think I understand, enough of what this is, how to monetize it, how to kind of sustain it. And I was just excited to start, it was so nice to just be able to work on it fully.
Sure.
And that's truly what I've been doing since.
So I've interviewed a handful of food bloggers. And first of all, I think y'all are nuts because the amount of work, we see a recipe. We see some pretty pictures, we see some pretty video, and then we hop on your website and there's like, the story behind it maybe and different variations and the recipe. And I'm like, oh, that seems easy enough. No, food blogging is insane. The amount of work that goes into one recipe. I am blown away. I mean, the interviews that I've done have really taught me the amount of work that goes into food blogging, the checklist, all the things you have to do. So if I go and search something, a recipe, your goal is that the original dish will pop up first.
Right, right. I think a great way to think of it, because I totally agree that it's hard to understand the concept of a food blog if you're not in it.
Yeah.
The funny thing, I get that feeling a lot too of, I think people just associate, right. Oh, it's just, you've just posted something. You're just kind of, I don't think people really get the back end of it, but I think a great way to think about it is like, it's essentially what a digital magazine
Mm-hmm.
company does in terms of like producing, even just the producing content aspects. Like there is a team of people to do each part of that production process to get that content on a website. And for a food blogger, if you're doing it on your own, you're each part of the process. And that's just kind of talking about content. Like the food then aspect of it too, you are the dishwasher, you are the grocery shopper, you are,
Mm-hmm.
you know, developing the recipe, you are testing it multiple times, you are shooting it, you are shooting a video of it, you're styling it, you're taking photos of it, you're editing those photos, you are writing copy around
Right.
the website, you are marketing it, and then you're doing it all over again for
I
each
know.
individual recipe. So it's
Y'all are
wild.
nuts. Y'all are
Yeah, I don't think I
nuts.
feel that.
I mean, just the amount of work. I was just thinking that, and the blog itself has to be entertaining, maybe kind of funny, interesting, and it has to grab me. And then if it doesn't grab me, I want to be able to jump to the recipe instantly. I just feel like there's so much work that goes into this. And I've asked all of you guys the same question, like, why? Why do you keep doing it? And I know the answer, but
Mm.
why?
It's funny because I've thought to myself, actually, right, why don't I just, if I love to cook, because that would be kind of my instinct answer, I love to cook, I could go cook in a different way. I think your question really hits on like, right, why this specific way of doing this? And there's got to be something, I'm so interested in what other people answer to this, because there's kind of like almost something addicting about the process in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And like what I just described with the food, the content piece, that is just right. One layer of like, you also are able to then create a brand, a website. For me, it actually, I've always thought of myself as like a very equally type A and type B person. And I think food blogging weirdly like hits this so on the head of like, it allows me to be in my type A brain of, doing tech work for my website and planning and organizing and meticulously like testing a recipe. But then I also get to be creative and, think of the visuals. And it just allows me to like tap into just so many different things that I love. And I think that's why it's really unique is most jobs out there in a position, you're kind of in this one lane of, I could go be a food stylist, but then I would be craving to like make a, marketing calendar. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? Like this specific food blogging thing like allows me to really do it all in that sense.
I love that answer. And I love that you just said that because this whole interview, you're talking and I'm like, whoo, type A. She's type A, type A, type A. It oozes out of you. But I'm very much the same way. I love a good checklist. I love to do the technical things. It has to be perfect. It has to be clean and crisp. But then I also love to be creative and do video and edit and make things pretty and swooshy and not, dreamy. So I love that you said that because I think there's nothing wrong with, you don't have to just be type A. You can be, do all the things, have your checklist and then be dreamy at the same time. I
Exactly.
love
That's
that. I love that answer.
Yeah, it's really interesting because it's kind of almost how I structure my week in a way of like if it's Monday morning, I'm gonna be on my computer and I'm being structured, I'm being type A, but on a Thursday night, I'll pour a glass of wine, blast my music and I'll just start cooking and
Mhm.
testing a recipe. And like, right, you got so many different sides to yourself that like this allows me to do work in a way that like really taps into all of it.
And I mean, that to me is a beautiful level of success, that you're doing
Yeah.
exactly what you want to do and how you want to do it. So kudos to you. Um, and I want to get back to one reason why I think y'all do it is because that positive feedback that you get, or when someone says like, I made this recipe and it was incredibly delicious and it's a new favorite, because I know you get that positive feedback, that's addicting too.
Yeah. That is, it's addicting on like a really almost personal level because to this day, it's been years now where someone could tell me that like they've made a recipe of mine and they love it and, their family loves it. They make it every week for their kids. But every time I hear that, it's still just like, wow, something I just did here in my kitchen, you're making, and now it's like a part of your family life. Like that, it really is the coolest thing. And I think that is like the power of the internet and social media, where like stuff you do and you love, you have the ability to share with so many
Mm-hmm.
people. Yes, that is like, I would say right up there in the reason of like why you would just keep doing
Yeah,
this.
for sure. And it's also, it's so funny because you can get 1,000 beautiful comments and then there's maybe one negative comment and you're like, really? And that sometimes for a lot of us, that's what we focus on is that negative comment. I look at comments when you guys are posting things, some of my favorite food bloggers, and I don't engage stupid on the internet. So I never say anything, but I love it. I love that your followers totally like stick up for you guys. It's so great. They're like, she said that in the video. Like, it's beautiful.
It's wild. That's a part of like being on social media and doing something online that I've never loved. There's so much ridiculousness out there
Ugh.
that that's been a very big like challenge for me to just kind of completely tune it out.
You have
Like
to. You have
yeah,
to.
someone posts a throw up emoji on your pasta, you just
Oh,
can't care. Because it's just not real. It's not like you've got to stay in like real life while also being
yeah.
in digital life, because that's just not real.
I mean, I was raised in the South, so I'm polite and I have manners. Like I was brought up to, if you don't have anything nice to say, you just shut up, don't say anything. And that's why I say I don't engage stupid, because it's like there's no point. You're not going to get anywhere and you've just got to let it roll off your back.
There's truly no point. And I'm sure most anyone doing this, and I've talked to many like, friends who are food bloggers, and they'll say the same, but
Mm-hmm.
it can be a huge um it can easily get in your way if you let it. Like I have had to really, I think doing anything creatively or putting yourself out there,
Mm-hmm.
sharing something you've made with the world, honestly, I feel like over these years, that's been my biggest hurdle that I work on every day is just having the self kind of like confidence and truly the disregard of like what comments and people could say. You just got to get over it. Like you
You
just
do.
have to, because anyone doing anything, I think, in the world of anything really, if they let the idea of what people would say or think, there wouldn't be anything out in the world.
Totally. And I was on TV for about 20 years and I got great comments from viewers and I got horrible comments from viewers. Horrible. Like it always shocked me. Like, why do you think it's okay for you to say that to me? And on one hand, I was like, hey, I'm putting myself out there. I'm putting myself on TV every night. And so I have to have a backbone. And so it got to the point where I would read it, I would let myself get sad over it or emotional or angry. And then I would crumble it up and throw it in the trash. So it's not like I would do that instantly, right? I would sit with it for a second, let my brain kind of process it, and then I'd throw it away. And I didn't even think about it ever again. But you're right. It's part of the process. And I think, you have to be strong with that, because then on the flip side, look at all of the people who adore you and adore your blog, and that's why you keep going.
Right. That's what you have to focus on. And I think too, something that really helped me was like, if I ever hit a moment where I'm like, I just don't want to keep putting myself out there like this. Like, I don't want what I do for work to be so open to this kind of potential criticism. I just thought of really any business in the world. Like, I thought back to my family's company with Nancy's. Like, anyone can say anything about Nancy's on Yelp. There's a million restaurant reviews full of nonsense and like negative stuff, where it's in so many different like industries and just places of work that it would never be a reason to like not do this. You know what I mean?
No way. Absolutely not. And I guess with that, when did you see your numbers start to grow, specifically on Instagram?
Extremely slow and steady over the years.
Yeah.
I can't really pinpoint like a shooting off point with it. I know I had I don't know why I remember this number. I had 8,000 followers on Instagram when I was in culinary school. And every milestone was like, oh my God, there's actually people, here following along. But it was such a gradual growth. And it was just the consistency of continuing to put things out there. And I think if people don't know about Instagram, like engagement is kind of exponential. So if you start to have content and recipes that like people, are loving, it's just going to kind of exponentially go from there. Yeah. It's all about putting in like that high quality content over a long period of time.
Absolutely.
Really.
And I love that it's been slow and steady. That's how you win the race, in my opinion. So that's how you get there. I did see, okay, William Sonoma follows you. Did you know that, Kayla?
I think I did know that, only because I went on a trip with them as a so I've worked with them before. So yes, which is incredible.
And I mean, I get it. They have a social media person, but still, I was, back in October of 2022, when I reached out to you, I was like, William Sonoma. William Sonoma. Like, I'm just like, how cool is that? That's so rad.
Thank you. It's wild. It's really cool. And again, it's right. I still get those goosebumps of like that people
who
I find really cool and are seeing my work. The other day, a girl showed me that Nancy Meyers is following me.
Shut up. Are you kidding me?
I weirdly got more excited for that than anything else because hello, the holiday,
a bazillion movies. Do you also realize, now I just got really excited. Someone put together a Nancy Meyers cooking kitchen playlist on Spotify.
I already like and follow it.
So
yes.
Next time, yes. So that's when I cook, that's what I want to listen to is the Nancy Meyers kitchen playlist. And every movie that she's ever created, produced, if you notice, the kitchens in the kitchen, the homes, the scenery, everything's so magnificent and beautiful. And I'm just like, she's on my list of podcast interviews. I want Nancy Meyers on here so bad.
Well, maybe we're like men.
I'm so, that's amazing that she follows you. That's amazing.
I was shook because, right, you kind of expect social media now, it is so cool when people follow you, but also it just is what the world is. Like, sure. You almost expect people in the food space, we're all going to kind of like somehow come across each other's work and content. But her, I was just.
Oh, yeah.
You can tell she loves food. She loves to cook. You could just tell because, right, how do you create those kitchens and that whole vibe in the movies without it? So.
And there's always I feel like there's always a visit to some fancy French market or, just whatever. It's just incredible. So Nancy Meyers, we love you.
Yeah, Diane Keaton and Something's Gotta Give, like her
Yes.
the market, or just like that's who I aspire to be
Oh,
truly.
and the pasta, and then she's putting down these gorgeous wine glasses, and they're pouring wine, and I'm like, yes, give me all of these things, give them to me. So,
Yes.
Nancy Myers, if you're listening, Kayla and I love you. Put us in your next movie.
Literally.
Okay, we're gonna wrap up just a little bit, but I have a few like fast and hot questions for you. Do you think you have a theme with your food? Is there a central theme?
The word I always say is seasonal.
Okay.
It's very, and that's something I really fell in love with in Napa, was like learning how to truly like cook seasonally and go to the farmer's market,
Yeah.
find that kind of food. But with what I share, it's like I think how people use it at least is like things they would make if they're entertaining for a dinner party.
Hmm.
Um, but it's really all over the board. I have a lot of Italian influences
Mm-hmm.
there, I would say. Um, I think it's like the flavor combinations are just really exciting. It's kind of just anything I kind of my tagline is like inspired recipes because it's just what I'm getting inspired by.
Yep.
If I see, a beautiful like seasonal leek, like I just want to make something with that.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. I think when I look at your food, real comes to mind. It's real food, real things.
That's I like that as well.
Yeah.
Right. Because I also, I'm here making and like it's what I eat. You know what I mean? It's what
Right.
if I'm going to like a friend's house and need to bring an appetizer, it's one of the recipes I have because it's like it's like I'm living, it's how I live with this food,
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. I
I think I,
occasionally, yeah. I occasionally cook on Instagram, and it's whatever I'm making for dinner that night. And it's like, oh, hey guys, you want to see this? Because I'm just like, yeah, it's what I'm craving that day.
exactly and I kind of love that flexibility with it. But seasonal and fresh and kind of Italian influence is what I would say with a mix of just like kind of whatever I want to
Yeah.
make.
Perfect. What do you think's the most important thing or things to have in your pantry and then have in your fridge?
Ooh, okay.
I don't know why the balloons
Pantry,
are going. I have no idea why that happens. I thought I turned those
Bloom
off.
is excited about
Apparently.
our conversation. Pantry, really, really simple stuff. So kosher salt and freshly cracked black pepper, not like the tin of shaked pepper, just like
Mm-mm.
whole peppercorns that freshly cracked. Um, good, good olive oil, a good neutral oil for cooking. Um, I'm not too spice heavy in food, so I would say just like a collection of spices that you'll use and that you always grab. Dried pasta, dried rice, dried beans, and I think you're kind of set there.
Okay. Perfect. I love that list. What about the fridge?
The fridge, I always have like, eggs and milk on hand if I want to bake something. I've always got fresh herbs. That's kind of my key. I think if I were to say one thing is fresh herbs because you really can make any dish like on a random weeknight and just put a few herbs in there and it's going to come alive and taste so much better. I always need to have citrus, some type of acid to finish food with. Gosh, my fridge is truly overflowing with so many things. So I'm trying to like condense this down of what an actual,
Mm-hmm.
everyday normal cook would make. But I gotta just say those fresh herbs are
Yeah.
really key.
I think that's a great list. There's something you mentioned. We were talking about, I think you were talking about culinary school, and you said looking back then to where you are now in life.
Yes, totally forgot about that. So just a really interesting thing for me is that experience with the community there in culinary school, and now after doing basically my own business for a handful of years, I've experienced that sort of lack of community in a lot of ways of just like working alone and not having a team, like not having as many people just so easily to, on an everyday basis, talk about what, work and things. So I've remember that experience a lot and how impactful it was to have that. And it's really just something I'm trying to like bring into my work now of like making more connections, networking more, becoming friends with just people in the industry and collaborating with people. So it was something that like I always really remembered as being so impactful there. And I definitely felt it for a long time when I was just working on my own, like not having that.
Oh, for sure. Cookbook? Is there a cookbook in your future?
There is definitely a very near goal of writing a cookbook. Yes.
That's
Nothing is in
fantastic.
true works yet, but it's really something I want to do very soon. So that would be
I would buy it. I would be in line to buy it. Again, I just think your food is so real and approachable is another great word for it. I'm not intimidated by it, or maybe I am just enough that I want to tackle it.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's such a good goal, like for me to keep in mind, right? It's like exciting enough where you want to make it, you want to like present this to the, people you're cooking
Mm-hmm.
for. Still, it's very approachable. So,
Absolutely. You heard it
yeah.
here first, everybody.
Well, thank you.
Also, before we get to the final three, I love your accent so much. This Chicagoan accent is just music to my ears. I love it.
I will never understand when people tell me I have an accent
Oh,
because
you
it's
do.
just
You do, sister.
that is funny.
Yeah. It's a good one though. It's one of my faves. It's absolutely one of my faves. Okay. Let's get to the final three. Kayla Howey. Best advice you've ever been given.
I think the best piece of advice, and it can apply for, career life in general, is the simple like concept of don't wait in anything you want to do for life. Like, because I am such, like you already have noticed, the type A and just people can get in their own way. There's always going to be another excuse. There's always going to be a reason not to. It's never going to be the right time to do something. Just don't wait and just start something.
That's good. That's good. I love this question because I always feel like my guests give me advice that I'm needing to hear right now. And you just gave me something that I need to hear right now. Don't wait. Go for it. Just do it.
I'm honestly saying it to myself as well because like, yeah, you'll be waiting for so long. Like I'm sure as well. There's things I've like had an idea for probably 3 years ago. And I'm like, well, I'll just get to that after I finish something else or something.
Yeah.
And it's been 3 years and it just doesn't get done. So like this is also a piece of advice I think that goes with it. And I heard it I love like personal development stuff. I heard it from Marie Forleo. She says, clarity comes with action, not with thought. So like if you get like I truly think about that all the time. If you just are thinking about it and trying to make a decision if you should do it or not, you will not know. Like you have to get it in your body and act on something to know if you're gonna like want that to be part of your life. So I don't know.
And you also never know if you can do something if you don't just do it. If you don't just try to do it, you'll never know if you can go there.
Yeah.
I love
so
that.
Simple, but
it's great advice. Don't wait, people. What's your happy place?
ooh, I've got so many, but I've actually always called like my whole life, I would call this my happy place. My grandparents on my mom's side live in Galena, Illinois, and I don't know if you know Galena, but their home, it's kind of in the middle of the nowhere. It's a cottage type vibe. And just whenever we go there, it's my happy place because it's one of those places that like the rest of the world just melts away and you're just totally present and happy there. So that's my happy place. My grandparents' house.
Love it. That hit me on the feels. In all things food and drink, what do you crave? What always sounds good to you?
I know I'm totally biased, but I could eat a stuffed cheese Nancy's pizza every single day of my life. And I honestly kind of eat it at least once a week. So Chicago cheese stuffed pizza from Nancy's for sure.
Does Nancy's ship?
Yes, we ship frozen pizzas. I can't say they are quite the same as getting it fresh out of the oven here, but they're pretty good.
Oh, I'm sure. I'll just have to travel to Chicago, I guess.
Absolutely.
And do that. Kayla Howey, you have been so fun. I really appreciate, you're one of those that I put in the category, you did your homework and you got the assignment right, because you truly, I can see like the gears in your brain working with every question, and I so appreciate that. Like, I really love the intent and the thoughtfulness behind everything we talked about today. So thank you. I'm pulling for you all the way, from Oregon over here, and I'm just so excited to follow you. And yeah, let's talk about that cookbook when it comes out.
No, I am so glad we finally got to connect and chat. And honestly, thank you. This was so, so awesome to talk all about food. And, I
know. Well, thank you again. And again, if you want to follow Kayla on Instagram, I highly recommend it. The Original Dish is where you can find her. And then your website, you post all your recipes on your website too, right?
Everything's on the website, and then a lot of fun videos and different things on Instagram.
Okay. I'm going to make that mushroom pasta.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
I think I might make it again.
Yeah. It looks incredible. Okay. Once again.
It's a good winter.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think anything, I could eat pasta probably every single day, but it's just good and hearty. It's hibernation food.
Absolutely.
All right. Stay warm in Chicago, Kayla. Thank you so much again for being here.
Thanks so much. Talk to you soon.
You've been listening to Hungry for More, an Epicurean's Dilemma with me, Trish Close. You can watch this podcast and subscribe on my YouTube channel. Just search Hungry for More, an Epicurean's Dilemma. You can also listen and subscribe wherever you like to listen to podcasts.